you're here at the RSP building, or I should say the Grainbelt Brewery building, inside which we have RSP Architects and Capsule. We want to nod to RSP because they designed the space. They help us put on this event. They are magical. They are amazing architects nationwide. We love them. And then we have another sponsor, Lake One. And if you haven't been here before, you don't know that Ryan Rudd is terribly shy. And so although he's been a sponsor for us for more than a year, maybe 2 years, he doesn't show up. So I give him shit every single time. And everyone, hopefully in the audience, reaches out to him on LinkedIn. Look for Ryan Rudd, Lake One, nicest guy you'll ever meet, runs basically a HubSpot integration company. So good guy, good firm, good entity. And give him a little grief for me. So those are the two sponsors beyond Capsule. Special Projects Agency, if you've never heard of us, that would be shocking because we put out messages everywhere, but that's us. I founded it 25 years ago along with Brian Aducci, who's sitting right there in the back. There's Brian. Raise your hand, Brian. Really high. There you go. Design guy, MCAT graduate, whatnot. All right. So we have two amazing guests on the stage, and we're going to finally get to this. I know you're getting like, hell, what the? I didn't come for a drawing.
I'm here for the drawings.
Okay. So first off, I want each of you to introduce yourselves, and then I'm going to turn it over to Kitty to ask the first question of each of you.
Hi, I'm Maria Hokanson. I have the wonderful pleasure of leading marketing for Dairy Queen for US and Canada. I've been there 20 years, which is shocking. And I think in marketing, that's like 100 years. And absolutely love working on the brand, the people. It's just a dream job.
So like dog years?
Like that's marketing.
5 years, marketing years? That's good.
Exactly.
That's good.
Paul Mooty, and I have the honor as well of being involved with the Faribault Woolen Mill Company, and I should say a steward of a great history and past that we were able to get involved with in 2011, and am a partner there and vice chairman. We can get into more later, I'm sure.
Yes, plenty to cover.
Think and Link is great because it's fun to have brands show up here on the speaker panel, right? But it's especially awesome when they're hometown brands and such iconic brands. So I know that everybody is super excited to hear from you both today. So let's start with a little bit of each of your backgrounds. You both have had great career path. Tell us a little bit about that and how you came to where you are today, basically, in your respective companies.
All right. It's as with most things, the path is never what you expect it to be. I started when I went to college at the University of Minnesota, and my declared major as a freshman was physics because I love math and science. And then I thought, oh, my family's in business and law, so I should go to business school. So I decided I went to business school. Then while I was in business school, I thought I should probably go to law school. So then I went to law school. And then I worked for a big accounting firm in the tax department for a few years, and then did private practice of law. And I kept finding every time that I thought the other side of the table seemed much more interesting to me than either the tax side or, drawing up contracts for which people put in drawers and never see again or care about, but they got to have them. So I had an opportunity to get involved. We were talking about this earlier with somebody. I got involved with a company in the construction business, specialty concrete construction business, which really taught me. It was trial by fire, but I learned a ton. And then we sold that, and then a couple years later, and we'll touch on this later, but that's when the Faribault Woolen Mill project came along. And the thing about it is everything I'd done prior to that was incredibly useful and joined into this Faribault Woolen Mill project. The learnings I had and the experience I had and the knowledge a jack of all trades, master of nothing, but it helped me do that. So that's kind of how I got to where I am.
That's awesome. Less school in my story.
That's not hard.
Thank you. So I've, as I mentioned, been at DQ for 20 years. Prior to that, I've always been in marketing, loved it. I moved here to the Twin Cities in 1999, last century, as my kids call it. And what I've loved about my journey at DQ, because that's been the bulk of my career, is I actually started there when Paul's cousin, Chuck, was CEO. And he was a fantastic leader, unifier. I have a coworker, Mike, who was there at the time. It was a huge time of change and reinvigoration for the brand. And it's just been powerful to be a part of that. And I feel very lucky to have come on board when Chuck was at the helm. And in my career path at DQ, what's been so wonderful is I've probably had 8 or so different roles within marketing. And every time I was kind of itchy, scratchy for a new opportunity, a new challenge, or I've probably put my mark on it and it needs some fresh perspective, I was able to move around and get different experience. Chuck actually kind of voluntold me for a role that I wouldn't have gotten. And I remember going home and be like, do they know what they're doing? And it was this wonderful opportunity because that allowed me to be in this role. And so I'm just so grateful for being at a brand where you can spread your wings. You can there might be a door cracked open and you can kind of bust through and get different experiences. And that's what's kept me there.
I love when people see greater things in you than you do in yourself. You're like, how did you, what? No, really? Am I capable of that?
Right. Let's hope that was the reason.
Well, it worked out. You're here
Yes.
100 years later
Exactly.
or whatever that is.
Exactly.
Yeah. The one, Paul, you missed one moment in your history. You've actually been on this stage before in a different permutation of Think and Link early on when we were in an old office. I'm surprised you left that off. It was so memorable for the rest of us. That's really sad. But what was great about that is you put us in tears. I mean, here's a business story that he was telling in front of our audience. And that time we only had like 15, 20 people in the room. And almost half the room was crying because of how compelling the story was. So can you tell it just like that again?
No pressure.
Can you tell? You remember back? It was
Yes,
okay.
I do. Well, I'll try and be brief on this. So the way the mill came about for me was as I mentioned, that other company had been sold. I was on a ski trip with a bunch of buddies in Colorado and my phone rings, and it was a fraternity brother of mine who I hadn't seen in 25 years who said, my dad is going to look at this business. I was wondering if you'd ride along with him and look at it. And I go, well, sure, I'm out in Colorado. I'll be back next week. So March 8th of 2011, drive down to the Faribault Woolen Mill with my friend's dad and a couple other people to look at the mill. The mill had closed in 2009, and so it had been idle for 2 years. So we go in the front door. The guy that gave us the tour had worked there for 40 years, lived on a house on the property, and was caretaking the place. We walked in the door. We hadn't been there 5 minutes, and he takes us, and we're going down to the lower level. Keep in mind, this building, parts of it date from 1892. And it's on a river next to a dam. And the guy says, there was a major flood here last fall. And so there's 10 feet of water in the basement. There were barrels of dye down here that open up. So there's chemical residue everywhere. So don't touch anything. And so I'm here 5 minutes and we're going down these stairs. I get to the bottom of the stairs, and it to be an install to a dumpster fire, to say it was a dumpster fire. It was a mess. And I thought, I'm leaving. But then I thought, wait a minute, I can't leave because I rode with these other people. So I had to stay there. 2 hours, so there for 2 hours. This guy gave such a compelling story about what Faribault Woolen Mill was and had been that I went home and said to my wife, I said, down at Faribault today, and I said, the place is a disaster area, but I said, what a fantastic story. I said, I don't know if any of the machinery works. I don't know. I mean, the building, only partial electricity works. You can't use a bathroom there. The roof leaks like a sieve. It's a 175,000 square foot building. I said, it just blew me away. So, but the guy, Dennis Melkert is his name. Dennis gave that story, and it inspired me to continue to look at it. And so that was March 8th. I kept looking at it and talked to a lot of people and became more interested in it. Then we're going on spring break. I called my cousin Chuck because he had just left Dairy Queen. And I said, Chuck, here, call Dennis. Drive down here and tell me what you think of this when I get back from spring break. And so I get back from spring break and Chuck says, hey, I went down here. And I said, I kind of like this. And so we started looking at it. And so, okay, March 8th, I saw it for the first time thinking it was a mess. April 22nd, he and I had a letter of intent to buy all the assets of the mill because the guys that own the assets bought it out of foreclosure from some the people who held the debt and said, we got a group from Pakistan that wants to buy all the equipment in the building. Now, keep in mind, this mill at one point produced half the wool blankets sold in the United States. It's a massive place, got a lot of equipment. And we thought, well, if you dismantle the place, it's done. And so it was all the assets, and it included the right to use the name Faribault Woolen Mill, because that was the key. I mean, the brand was the key. And so we said, okay, we'll buy it. I mean, and we knew nothing about textiles. So on July 5th of 2011, we opened the doors with 5 people. 3 of us knew zero about textiles. And off we went. And so this was not an MBA style. There wasn't a spreadsheets. There wasn't a business plan. There was a vision of a great brand, a product made in America that we thought and a product that everybody uses, and a renewable resource. I mean, it checks boxes all over the place, but beyond that, we didn't know anything. So, and then we also then bought the building shortly after that, because that was owned by another group of people. And off we went. By the end of the year, we had 40 employees, 35 of which had worked there anywhere from 10 to, we had one lady that had worked there, well, not at the time, but by the time she was done, she was 83 years old, worked there 63 years. Those people came back and got us going. And we had, so off we went. And I don't want to keep going because I could talk about this all day long, but it was literally a phone call, go on a car ride, go, this looks cool. My cousin, and this is important because one day Chuck and I were down there, just the 2 of us in the building walking around. We had walked and we hadn't talked to each other probably for 45 minutes, just walking and looking. And I could go to the space where we were right now. And he started laughing. He goes, "Paul, I think we can do this." And I said, "Chuck, I just had the same thought go through my head." He said, "Let's do it." So we did. And sometimes these sorts of things are, a little bit of Vegas. You throw the dice and you see what happens, but that's how it happened.
What caused the mill to shut down?
It closed in large part because in the late 90s, going into 2000, everything was going offshore. People wanted cheap foreign goods. And so that was a big contributor. The other thing is, that was the same family owned the mill from 1865 to 1995. It was family run, and they were amazing. And then it got bought by some Twin Cities business folks. And I think there was some decisions made and some misfortune with everything going offshore. And in 2009, they closed. And so when I walked through there, when they closed, it would be just like this room right now. They said, "Leave, don't touch your coats, your bags, everything here, just leave." So you walk in there, the desks had a cup of coffee, had the paper, the pencils, the machines were just turned off midstream. It was like everyone just got beamed up to the Enterprise. They were gone. And so that's what it looked like. But it was everything going offshore, and some decisions, but I would say primarily everything going offshore.
I think you even said that so it ended abruptly, as you said, things were left. There were still wool in the mills, correct?
Right,
there
yeah,
were still blankets
there was
that
wool
were...
and carding machines, because the mill is a vertical mill, meaning that we literally start with a bale of wool. We dye it, we card it, we spin it into yarn, we weave it, we finish it and cut and sew. Everything happens under that roof. So it's and there's only 2 left in the United States right now, Faribault and that other one. Oh, well, Pendleton. They don't make yarn anymore. Okay, they don't make yarn anymore. So we are the last true vertical mill. Christian works with us. So we have that very unique attribute of being really one of the last in the country.
And you were worried he was going to talk too little. Are you kidding me? He does that. I know.
I'm loving it.
I know. I love it too. So can we go a little bit into the history of Dairy Queen?
So
Interesting
you
knowing.
may be surprised. So we're celebrating our 85th birthday this year.
Youngster.
I know, right? Isn't that awesome? Fun to work on a brand like that. And yes, comparatively. We are 85 years old. You may not know this, but we're owned by Berkshire Hathaway. So Warren Buffett. I had the opportunity to meet him one time, which was incredible. I unfortunately sounded like a Muppet, but that's neither here nor there. And what's wonderful about the brand is we're now in 29 countries and have this wonderful heritage of being something different in the quick service restaurant space. So, our main competitors are McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's, and there's an emotional connection with DQ that is very different than what people have with McDonald's. Our feeds are filled with, sticky chins and moments and patio nights on the summer. So what might surprise you, though, is now 70% of our locations in the US and Canada are now grill and chill. So they have the whole food menu and the treat menu. And we're the number 6 largest burger chain in the country. And we're number 2 in chicken strips, just behind Raising Cane's. So we have this opportunity to become more of a we're kind of people's food vacation. We want to be, your more less special occasion, but we sell a lot of food. So it's an interesting business opportunity for us.
That's cool.
Right?
I didn't realize that
Right?
much.
Did you know Berkshire Hathaway, when it started, was a mill, textile mill?
No, I did not know that.
They need to buy us.
Nerds.
Bias. Nerds.
Nerds. Yeah, that is funny. Yeah. Of course, their mill isn't around anymore. It's a totally different thing. Kitty, do you have a question for our guests?
So let's talk a little bit about how the brands are embedded into communities and how the brands represent community and interact with the community. Can each of you speak a little bit to that?
So the wonderful thing about DQ is we're primarily franchised. We only have 2 corporate locations. And what that means for us is that our franchisees are embedded in the communities that they serve. And so there's this passion behind the business. A lot of, a lot of kids have their first job at DQ. So it's a really important part of the community. And really, we're a bunch of small businesses. But what we've done with that from a community perspective is we've been partnering for we're in our 41st year actually, of partnering with Children's Miracle Network hospitals. So how that works is all of the dollars raised go to the local children's hospital, but we're able to kind of unify. So we're coming up on having raised over nearly $200 million for CMNH. And here in our community, our friends at Gillette are who we partner with. They're part of that network. And so we're so proud when you go tour Gillette, there's this amazing pool that allows kids to, it's got a treadmill in it, so it takes your weight off of you, and that's a big DQ room. There's a lot of DQ love there, but that's true across both the US and Canada. And so what we do, so today is Free Cone Day, little plug.
Don't forget,
Don't
right after
forget.
this, go get a cone.
So go get your free cone, but we're also doing a Dip It for Kids. So you get a $1 dip, and that goes to the local children's hospital. And then every year we do a big campaign called Miracle Treat Day, where for every Blizzard sold, $1 or more goes to CMNH. So my coworker Becky and I are headed to Children's Hospital Week in I think 18 days. It's a wonderful connection because we are about families. And it's just a way for our franchisees to be connected together as a DQ system, but also helping the communities they serve.
I love that you scale, the scale of DQ
Right.
to do good with that. Because
Right.
you run into, and we've had these conversations with businesses in the modern form of, I want to do something good as well as be in business. And it as if it's a new concept, right? And then you talk to people at Thrive and they're like, hey, we've been around for a long time and have been doing that. And brands like this who have been doing it for a very long time as well, using that scale for good.
It's the perfect partnership because, they too are getting the scale and making a difference locally. So it's a wonderful partnership.
Beat that, Paul.
Thanks for going first. Well, for the record, we're slightly smaller. Wait a minute, we're extremely smaller than Dairy Queen is. So, but giving back, being part of the community is very important to us. Certainly, the Faribault community has been remarkably nice to us and generous and helping us. I think even when the mill was closed, the Chamber of Commerce would say that the number one call they got was, "Is the mill opening? Can we do tours down here?" So it was very beloved in that community, and so we're very, very, very fond of them as well. So we try to, from a community perspective, we have a program called Share the Warmth, where we give, we'll give blankets back to the people in need, because obviously the products we make are something that, everyone can use, and there are people that need a blanket. And we will, like, one of the groups we partner with is My Very Own Bed. They provide a bed. They're providing beds to kids that don't have beds. And part of that is they need a blanket. So there's some great things we can do with the products we have that can give back. And we do lots of tours for the community, people that come in and want to see the place. I mean, one of the things I laugh about, we'll kind of chuckle about, is people will come into it because we have a retail store at the mill. They'll come in and they'll look at a blanket and it goes, "Why is that $300?" And then they do the tour and they come back and he goes, "Why is that only $300?" and so there's twofold, I mean, one, it's good for the community to share it. We also put our building on the National Register of Historic Places, which, because it is a natural, I mean, it is a treasure, and selfishly, it provided us some state and federal tax credits to help us do some rebuilding of the place, which needed a great deal. But giving back, we get a lot of requests for donations to events, to fundraisers and other things, and so it's great for us to give that. It's very rewarding to give back to the community, and as we grow, we want to do more.
And what's funny is we connected last week. I'm on the board with, who's Brianna?
Brianna,
Yeah,
yes, Dave, Chuck's brother, it's Dave.
Okay.
So I just dropped off that blanket for her today. So
for the Big Brothers Big Sisters Gala, and
this
we
morning.
serve on the board together. So
Yep.
thank you.
Well, that's
Yeah, and I give you grief, but I also firmly believe that employing people, giving them purpose in their life, is a great contribution to society. And I can't imagine the call from the woman who, now just sound like she just retired recently after being there for that many years. You're going to come back to work. You got this great opportunity to come back to work in the Faribault community. That's compelling.
Well, it is. And let me just share this real quick about her. Mary Boudreau, she passed away a couple of years ago. But Mary, in 2017, we got invited to the White House to represent Minnesota in the Made America product showcase. And they said, if you got a longer term employee you want to bring along, you can do. So I literally hung up the phone. I walked down to the weave shop and I talked to Mary and asked her, I said, "You want to go?" And she said, "Well, what will I wear?" And I said, "Well, let's decide if we're going, then we'll figure out what we're wearing." So she went. Second time in her lifetime she was on an airplane, and she got to do that. And it was such an honor. It was so tremendous. And when she died in her casket, she's laying in her casket wearing a Faribault Woolen Mill sweatshirt. And so that was her life. And it was the people like that built, and what I said earlier about being a steward, we're stewards of a great past. And it's people like Mary that made that happen. And so it's not, we came and bought it and helped turn the lights back on. But these are the people that built a great company.
Dude, you're making people cry again. Okay, maybe that's just me. But what? Yeah, okay. We're going to calm this down a bit.
I'll settle down.
Just don't make us cry. That was really compelling. Thank you. Kitty, do you want to go next or do you want me to jump in?
Maria, tell us about this smile story, smile
Sure.
and story.
So this was a phrase that was started many years ago. So it kind of, we call it a smile and a story. And what's a really wonderful thing about being a part of the DQ brand is when you tell someone you're at a cocktail party, you tell someone you work there, you're walking through the airport wearing your drip, your DQ drip. People will stop you and tell you their smile and story. And we just feel so fortunate to have that emotional connection with our fans. We call our consumers fans. But the challenge with that is we need to push forward too. And we don't only want to be thought of in the rearview mirror. So our challenge as a brand and our opportunity is to leverage that emotional connection, but make it for today. Or if we pull on the strings of nostalgia, pull on personal nostalgia with DQ, as opposed to kind of showing the old point of purchase materials or things like that. So it's this wonderful gift that we all have and are a part of. And I think we feel the same way, I would say, at DQ, is that, we feel like we're part of this American icon. And there's this sense of responsibility of leaving it in a better place than even we found it, and making sure that we're creating those emotional connections for tomorrow. and that isn't something that only happened in the 80s or 90s or whenever. So that's kind of our legacy, different, but something that when you go around the building, you definitely feel it. And every team, every member wants to do a good job. There might be different priorities, but I tell you, there's this commitment to furthering the brand that's just palpable.
I love that. The fact, I mean, your brand, all of our brands live in the memories of the customers, the people, right? All those memories coming together. The challenge of keeping it relevant, and you've almost answered that other question that we've got, which is how do you keep relevant with a very historic brand like that? When really it goes beyond even memories, they take ownership of, like, they get that engaged in the brand. Do you see that in your base customers?
Yes, so when we look at our customers, we have by share, the biggest amount of our customers are what we call occasional indulgers. So even though they represent the largest count of customers, they don't represent the largest revenue. They come a couple times a year, get their treat. They aren't very engaged with us. So where we see our big growth opportunity is we as a brand really resonate with families with kids. It's kind of our superpower. We're only behind like the pizza chains in families with kids. So, and when we look at what we call family satisfiers, we find that they engage with the brand using us for what we're kind of calling internally this one-stop shop, where you don't have to choose, is everybody okay getting chicken? Is everybody okay getting burger? You can get burger, you can get chicken, you can be the hero and get everybody a treat. And so really we see an opportunity with that group and with this kind of younger group that is engaging with us digitally that we're really excited about as a great opportunity to use us as that one-stop shop too. So what we think is, and we've seen when we are able to act that way, our brand just sings because there aren't a lot of national, let alone global brands that have that offering. So, what we have to push against is just being considered as that after game destination, which is also the magic of us. And so it's this tension where we don't want to lose what makes us special, but we want to reframe how people think of us, including what makes us special.
I was just thinking that's where we were every time after every game. It was
Right.
Our,
And we
our
still
Dairy
want
Queen.
that.
Right. But then when the kids grow up, we're like, well, we're going to do
Yeah.
we're not there around. We need the grandkids to show up, then we'll do that.
And
Not that we need to do that soon, kids. We'll wait on that a little bit.
Exactly.
But,
And how we act as a brand, we're actually DoorDash's number one second stop, which I love and I don't love, and so how do we retain that magic, that special sauce, and how do we have people think of us a little differently?
get to the first stop. That's good.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm glad we talked a while so I can get over the fact that Paul was making me cry too.
You're
So,
welcome.
Let's go back to Paul.
We try to bring the joy.
See if I can get you to cry again.
Same question to you. What was the question, Kitty? Did you ask that?
The smile and story was where,
Oh,
is
no,
that where
I don't
that
have that
started?
story.
You don't have that. Yeah. Okay. So we were going to, that as a historical brand, right? How do you deal with history and heritage? Because it can be seen as boring and old. And how do you keep it contemporary? How does that impact innovation, new product development, those types of things?
Yes, it's a good question. I mean, the history is a huge blessing because we have a great story. We have an authentic story. And not only is the story authentic, but we're in the place that it's been since actually 1892. There was a mill before that burned down and they came to this location. So it's everything is there. I mean, you pull up to the place, there's a dam that used to turn a water wheel, that turned cogs, that turned gears, that turned machines, that eventually turned the electric motor, turbine that, powered the machines. So people love the authentic story. And we have an archive of all of these blankets that were made over the generations. So we have this incredible, and photographs and things that are the rich history. And we do these tours. I think probably 3,000 people a year or more will tour through there. So that's great. But, to be relevant today, it's things like the Hams Bear, going out and getting a license with that and doing fun things like this that are personal that they would not have done back in the day. They didn't. I don't know that they had the looms that could make things like these. Are different kinds of looms that makes these, and bring it back. And we tried to tie to Minnesota for some of the stuff. Hams, again, I told Aaron this earlier. A ham started in 1865, the same year as the mill did. Ironically, we've got a license with peanuts, so we've got the Charlie Brown, which is another Minnesota company. So we've tried to tie into the Minnesota part of it, but also we're a national brand. As I said earlier, at one point, the mill sold half the wool blankets sold in the United States. It was in every department store in this country. And during World War I and II, the odds were a soldier carried a blanket that came out of the very mill that we have. So there's this rich history. People come there, they love that, but we do have to be relevant. We have to come up with new designs. We partner with artists, local artists and others from Native American to other artists to have things that are fun and unique, and we're able to do that. So to remain relevant in things that we do. And one of the things that the history maybe, and if anything works against us, it would be people kind of think of wool blankets as scratchy. They think their grandma's old scratchy wool blanket and they don't want to use that. Well, things have changed. They're not scratchy. I mean, some people are allergic to wool, but I mean, that's changed. But, try to educating the public on what we have and the new things. And people love to see these new things. So we always have to be innovative, which we can be.
Yeah, I love that. We got a lot of history with wool with our 7 years with Smart Wool, as Kitty knows. And the innovations that have happened, and it's a lot softer, a lot easier to have up against the skin. It's not like, the nightmare of a wool shirt.
That's right. But it takes a little education.
It does. Yeah, you got to get people familiar with it. Just that thing in your head, you have to re-educate it. Kitty.
Yeah, if we can talk a little bit more about the design process. So you've got specific artists or local artists that you work with. Do you also have internal design?
We do. We
Okay.
do. And we'll.
What does the process look like?
Well, the process sometimes will be people will look at, it could be what are the colors that are, hot or, important in the world. It's seasonal or whatever. And then we can go back and look at some of our classic designs and say, how could we reimagine those or things that we found that are very popular. And given our size, that we're not gigantic and we're not overseas, we don't have to make 10,000 units at a time. We can experiment. We can make a few things and kind of see what the reception is on those things, or put them out on the website. But we have a team, and we also have software now where we can, as opposed to just looking at surface art, which can look very different than what something will come out on a loom. So we can put it into that software and see what it's going to look like woven. As opposed to this glossy picture. And so that really helps us before we invest the time in making yarns and doing it and weaving and finishing and all that stuff. We can do that, but it's keeping an eye and a sense on trend and designs and what's needed. And things like the map over here, that was the very first map we did, but now, we've done map, Lake Minnetonka, the Great Lakes, areas because they become very personal to people. And so we could take that, develop that, and then people, I've got to have that because I live on, Gull Lake, or I've got to have it, or I live on Lake Superior, or what. And so it's been fun, and we can do those things, and and technology today allows us to do that. Some of our really old looms, and we're in the process of replacing looms over the last few years because it takes time because this stuff they're not free, but. The old looms are actually run. It looks like a player piano. It's a punch card that you put on, and it just rolls, and it does. And so now with the new technology, everything's on the computer, and when we do it on this design, we can just send it to the loom, and it can weave it out. But it's not like just we push a button and it's done. There's a lot of work that goes. So if you haven't gone for a tour, do a tour.
We can appreciate that in the design field. It's not a push the button and it's done.
No, but people think it is a push a button.
We'd like a website tomorrow. Can you just push a button?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and you're creating really interesting value too when you're creating these designs, and then maybe they're only available for a specific amount of time,
Correct.
and then that design is retired. that's probably going to have more value if someone is looking at
No,
buying
it's a
that.
great one. We've done some work with Supreme. I don't, for those who are familiar with the Supreme brand out of New York. And the first one we did for them, and whatever we sold them for, and I don't remember the price, it's not relevant, but let's say it was $150. They were selling them to their customer base, and these were limited runs. They were selling them for 300, but on the aftermarket, they were selling for $2,000-$3,000 a piece immediately that day. And so every once in a while they come back to us and we make a limited run for Supreme, but but then they stop, to your point. And then it's, you build that demand back up.
Yeah. And you have to have some discipline around that too, because if you attach yourselves to brands that end up not
Right.
being, you become oversaturated, and then people say, well, that's not really so.
That's correct. That's correct. And we
Desired.
have to be, there's a couple times we've turned down things that were, I'll say in one case, very racy, that we chose not to do, and that because everything we do, we want our brand on.
Yeah.
We're not a contract manufacturer, other than for the U.S. military we are. But so if we're going to put our name on it, we want to be proud of what we're putting our name on and not go, hey, what was that?
You didn't get me, but I appreciate, especially Supreme. Like, holy shit, dude. Oh my, that's like, not that I didn't think you were cool, but that's cool. That's another level.
Yeah, well, and they
Yeah,
came,
it's great.
yeah, and because we had a national brand, and it was made in America and all of that. I mean, that opens doors for us, even though we're small and building ourselves back up. It's that, again, it's what the people before us did that has allowed us to do this.
Nice, wonderful respect for the history and heritage of the brand, for sure. Katie, you have another question?
At what point, with Dairy Queen, at what point did did they decide to bring in the freezer products? And so when you're thinking about the consumers who, as we think about iconic DQ back in the day when we were kids, we'd go and we'd get our cone, and there were little stores. And then at some point we got the ice cream cakes, and we wanted a dilly bar. I don't want just one, I want a pack of 6. So these people are coming into the store, they're grabbing freezer product and they're leaving. Do you design that experience differently?
Sure.
For them?
So there's two kind of paths for that. One is we have a very robust cakes and novelties business, which hopefully you were able to enjoy a dilly bar today, and we have a dairy-free version too. So that's actually, it's really good. The other thing that we did this last year was launch what we call the DQ freezer. And so are many of you familiar with the Disney Vault? So the idea was, and this came from an internal discussion we had this thing that we called the freezer. We'd have a product and we would put it in the freezer, and then we would bring them back out, kind of like how you were talking about some of your designs. And what we wanted to do was take our power of innovation. We've had hundreds of Blizzard flavors, just as an example, and people clamor. Like our Blizzard manager, she's like, "Oh boy, we're going to announce a new flavor." She's like, "Here come the s'mores people." Or the cotton candy folks are ready. And so this was something we wanted to take advantage of and kind of use our power. So last year we launched the DQ freezer and opened it up for the first time. And we did this huge activation where we froze our feeds, and consumers got it. And it was really fun to see the, like, what's happening, what's going on. And then when we opened the freezer with a couple flavors, they were so excited. So we brought back brownie batter, which was having its 25th anniversary. And we also brought back frosted animal cookie, which was our #1 request. And so this year we've been doing more, where we've been having fan votes, and we might, be like our own Taylor Swift and do a drop one day. You never know. And so we're really trying to figure out how can we leverage this new brand treasure and really kind of create some buzz, because it's all about, you know, especially as we look at kind of reaching a younger demographic and having them think about us differently, it's standing out and being iconic, like you were talking about. It's interesting how we kind of have the same playbook.
Absolutely.
Yeah, stealing from the Disney book of a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Exclusivity, a little bit of, you know, timeliness. That's really well done. Yeah, that's cool. It kind of leads to a TikTok question though, doesn't it? Like, Paul, what are you doing on TikTok? Are you on TikTok?
We have dabbled a little bit in TikTok. We do the traditional Google, Facebook, Instagram type thing, but we have our marketing department is probably just a shade smaller than Dairy Queen's. And so, and our budget is probably equally smaller. So, lean, mean machine. But I mean, we have lots of opportunities. But our e-commerce is our largest portion of our business. But TikTok is an opportunity for us.
Yeah, an interesting one. I bring that up because we had the TikTok guy on last month, and you were here for that.
I was.
Wonderful. Yeah, interesting perspective.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And some
I brought that information back.
Oh,
Trust me.
Nice. Yeah. Generate or engineering social things going viral, which I always thought, no, that's not possible. But he's like, no, we did it. Anyway, that was cool. Okay, so we have 15 minutes left. So we have questions for the audience.
Before we do questions, could I just, I brought one thing here that I'd like to share, because this, of any moment at the mill, this.
Are you going to try to make me cry again?
Well, this could be a tear, because this one made me cry when I read this. So, but it was fairly early on. It was in 2014. So keep in mind, we started in 2011 and we're just getting rolling. But I remember as I'm sitting here now, I was sitting at my desk at the office and opened up this letter. And we make blankets. Okay. We're not curing cancer. We're not doing anything big here, but it's like, what do we do? What's the brand about? One of our taglines was one of the old taglines was purveyors of comfort and quality. And I really like that one. But this letter came and was from January of 2014. It says, "Sirs, do you manufacture this certain blanket?" It says, "We have a beige one, Faribault, that is approximately 20 years old that we bought for our daughter when she was in high school. She carried it with her to college, then into the military, and slept with it every night. Unfortunately, she was killed in action in Iraq in January 2 of 2004, and her Faribault blanket was returned to us afterwards with her other belongings. For obvious reasons, my wife slept with this blanket every night, but is now becoming worn, and she would like to archive this one and use a new one like it instead if Faribault still manufactures them. If so, could you please send me contact information for a retailer? Thank you for your assistance in finding what we're looking for, Dale Hampton." They're out of South Carolina. If you read that letter and you don't have tears in your eyes, and tells you about, for a lot of people, it's a blanket. How many people know what the brand of it is, let alone these people? And it had to be. And so we got a picture, and we didn't make something exactly like that, but we got them one. Their daughter was the first female pilot killed in combat in U.S. history. And they'd written a book about her. Amazing young lady. She was an only child. The family, they never thought they could have kids, so she was kind of a miracle child. Amazing young lady. And so, but you get a letter like this, and it reminds you what you're doing. There's the impact that can have on people beyond what you think. You just make this thing that sits on your couch, but no, the mom slept with that blanket every day. So anyhow, this is something I will keep with me and never forget. So
amazing story. Absolutely amazing story. So questions, none for Paul, but Maria, all Dairy Queen questions. We don't want Paul answering any questions, and we don't want any crying. I know, it's already done.
I don't think this will bring any tears, but so I was actually just asking your coworker, and I would like to ask both of you, 5 years of COVID anniversary, and everyone's kind of talking about how it's changed their business, their way of work, et cetera. Very different business models. Just curious to see what happened during the shutdown. Mike was kind of alluding to some positive things that happened at Dairy Queen. Obviously, you have a job that people can't work remote in the mill. So just curious to see kind of the impact and where you are today on that.
Yeah, for us, Mike is absolutely correct. It's such a weird time to think back on, but as a brand that provides little moments of joy, people came to us and sought us out. There were lines at DQ drive-throughs across the country, and there were news stories on pay it forwards that lasted for days at places. So, I think when you're a brand that's rooted in bringing little moments of happiness, to be able to be a part of that for people going through a very hard time was very unifying for us and very special. But it was also incredibly hard for our franchisees and our teammates who, were figuring out, how do you run operations? How do you social distance? But they did it, and we came out all the better for it as a brand, as a unified team. And we were lucky. We had drive-throughs. That was the brands that really suffered had to shutter their doors. So, but all in all, I think we were grateful that we could be there.
Yeah, and while we're different as a manufacturer, I mean a retailer as well, but we were deemed an essential business because we manufactured for the blankets for the U.S. Army and U.S. Navy. So we were kept open, and so we continued production. And we're a big online sale too. And during that time, everyone's home. And they're thinking about home. They're kind of cleaning up the house. They're buying things for the home. And so, ironically, we grew during that period because I think people were at home. They're looking at looking for things, and this was an item they wanted, and the fact that we were allowed to stay open allowed us to do that. So it was certainly an interesting time for sure, but we all survived it, and in our case, it was arguably a benefit.
Wonderful. Yeah. It's funny that we don't reflect back on that as much anymore. We used to, like, when we went through that, we had so many conversations about all things related. Part of this format came out of like seeing that through other people's lenses, right? What is it like going through that? Now reflecting back on it and that historic moment in all of our lives. Yeah, fascinating. I thought you were going to get me to another tearjerker, but I'm like, geez, the whole theme is that. Anyway, other questions from our audience? Oh.
Hello, I would love to know how you approach brand differentiation. So for you, people could say blanket's a blanket. So how do you differentiate? And, for you, obviously, you've talked a little bit about competitors, but just interested.
Well, I think for us, differentiation is, I mean, we probably lean on, made in America, and because there's not much left of that. And we can certainly say, as Christian alluded to earlier, I mean, we're the last one that is completely vertical, and we do everything here. And for not everybody, that's not a big deal. But we like to differentiate that way. In a 160-year-old brand is something, and quality. Sometimes the joke is, the blankets, the good news is they last forever. The bad news is they last forever. If they wore out, you'd have to buy them more often. So you've got to do that. But, it's quality, it's heritage, it's things that are great gifts, they're wedding gifts. The number of stories we get from people say, oh, we got a Faribault blanket at our wedding 60 years ago, and we still use it every day. So, try to from memories and, differentiate it from something that's just, you kind of forget about. So, again, it's the made in America, it's the quality, the story, the history is how we try it's just not a blanket.
So for us, it gets back to that emotional connection. So our mission and vision are to create positive memories for all who touch DQ. And our vision is to be the world's favorite quick service restaurant. And I think those words speak loudly of how we're different. So memories, favorite is probably not what you would see on Wendy's wall or at McDonald's headquarters. And so we know that our treats are providers of those moments. And then as an offering, we can provide different types of moments, whether it's lunch, dinner, after the game, to consumers or fans that hit a little different than just filling your gut.
Love that. So, funny story related to that before we ask the next question. We had a lovely trip to Chicago to visit with McDonald's at one point in time on a project, and was research related. And we said, well, what we tap into is your fanatical fans. And I'm in a room of 8 other people from the McDonald's marketing team. And they looked at me and said, yeah, we don't have fanatical fans. We've got heavy users. I'm like, oh, shit. Oh, well, then we'll go somewhere else for that audience. Yeah. Anyway, yes.
Thanks, you guys. Really nice presentation, good stories. This question's more for Maria here. I recently read something about just ice cream consumption is at 20-year lows right now. Not for me. I love ice cream, but curious just how Dairy Queen is kind of navigating that more macro trend.
So what we've been seeing is even within quick service restaurants, frozen treats overall have been declining a bit. We had a big high during COVID too. So some of that's shaking out a little bit. But what we've done is really retrenched a little bit in making sure that we're getting out there and being more bold with our flavors. So I'll give an example. We came out a few weeks ago with a cone dip called Crunch and Cookie. It's blue and it's got Oreo flakes in it. We started seeing, so we had projected to have this in stores through the summer. We saw it starting on going viral on TikTok and Insta with some menu hacks where people were not only buying the dip cone, but also making parfaits, making blizzards. And so we jumped on that. We created preps, got it out to the stores. Several teammates were involved in that. And in the last 2 weeks, in the US only, we sold 710,000 of those menu hacks. And so I think it's about being bold and being less conservative, which is a shift for us, but really standing out.
Bold and agile. I mean, that's impressive. A quick move. That's cool.
So first and foremost, when is the peanut butter parfait blanket coming out? When's that going to drop? And will there be pre-sale?
Thank you. I'll give you your $20 after the event.
Yeah, look, I'm in. I do a lot of work with college students, and some kind of the question is, given your experiences and your perspective on the business world today, if you're hiring someone straight out of college, like what advice would you have for them thinking about the state of historic manufacturing? Like, what's the future in that for a 24-year-old looking to build a career, or in an industry that as you just discussed, like consuming dairy is just becoming less and less and less. So what advice do you have for young people starting their careers in terms of behaviors or attitudes or habits that can help them succeed?
It's a great question. And in our business, I mean, there's kind of a couple of different tracks. I mean, in terms of what you want to do. I mean, if you want to be a manufacturer and finding people that want to do the manufacturing part, the hands-on work with machines, and we're not super high tech, but that is that's a challenge for us finding, because we have capacity at the mill, mostly in terms of shift capacity. We could have 3 shifts. But finding people who are capable of running all this different equipment and learning how to do it, and people that want to do that. In the old days, someone had to die for you to get a job at the mill. That's not the case anymore. So it's finding that. Now, on the other side of the equation, where you've got the marketing side and sales, and all the back office stuff, marketing, those are opportunities for it. And having a historic business, I think there are people, younger people, because I mean, we have Christian here. I have a daughter the younger crowd love the historic part of it. They love the storytelling. And so there's that opportunity to come and get involved with something with that rich history and build upon it and be part of it. And that's not for everybody, but I think that's, I do find for people, it's, when you have the story to tell and you're proud, I would tell people at the mill, like if you're having a bad day and you're kind of down and there's people around, someone wants a tour, go give them a tour. go tell them the story about the mill. Because by the time you're done, you come back, not only have you told them the story, but I mean, I find myself reinvigorated myself just about, yeah, because sometimes it's like you're in the moment and it's like, where were we? Where are we? And it's a journey. I mean, none of this stuff is easy. I mean, every day is a challenge. I was at a event where PJ Flex spoke, and he made, to me, was, I don't know if this was his statement or someone else's, but it was very profound. He says, this job is constant chaos interrupted by brief successes. And that is so true. It's constant chaos. And it's those little brief successes on a daily basis that get you to the next day and want to do it again. And so I think my advice would be, it's just like, look, it's going to be hard. You know, you're going to have ups and downs, but enjoy those successes and you're building something. You know, sometimes it's 2 forward, 1 back. It's not always 2 forward and no back. So
I feel that that could describe parenting as well.
yes, it can.
What I would say is, you know, the beauty of being a legacy brand is we've followed the consumer. We've changed so dramatically over our time frame, and we're in another evolution of digital. And we talk with our franchisees about this is as big as when drive-throughs started, right? Like, think that was another big moment, or one that I happened to be around for was the big credit, you know, do we accept credit cards? Oh my gosh, that's crazy, you know? And can you imagine if we didn't?
Bitcoin.
So, you know, things change, behaviors change, but if you know your consumer and you know your brand, you can find the ways to solve that. And that's the fun of what we do, actually. And that keeps us agile in making sure that we're meeting consumers' needs. So that's what we do. We do it currently through ice cream, you know, but who knows? And there's going to be ways people want to treat themselves or feed themselves, and people are always going to be in a hurry, right? So I think that would be my advice.
Great question and amazing answers. Thank you. That was great. One more question, and then we have to go to our, you know, we got to let them go at some point in time. Take it away.
Y'all both mentioned being in the enviable but challenging position of working on brands with a big legacy and trying to balance that legacy with how do we change to keep up with the present and get ready for the future. Can each of you talk for just a minute about how you actually go about doing that in your organization? What do you do organizationally to keep that balance struck the correct way?
Well, you know, for me, and I hope I'm going to answer your question on this, but I think it's, for us, the anchor is, you know, as I mentioned earlier, we're stewards of a great past, and what made this a great company, and it was quality. It was ingenuity. They provided, you know, the first washable wool blanket, for example. Most people go, boring, big deal. But I mean, if that's your industry and you create the first thing, continue to think about what are things that we can do that we can bring to the marketplace that's going to be an advancement in the technology. We're working on, you know, softness and other things, but stay in line with what made us a great company. What made Faribault a great company in the first place, and never forget the quality. Customer service, those things that, you know, and particularly in today's world with the internet, and people can, if there's not a good experience, it's out there pretty quick. So it's, you know, continue to innovate. And for us, innovate is new designs, I mean, a blanket is a blanket. I mean, wool is wool. I mean, that's not going to change. But what can we do in process? What can we do in design? And what can we, you know, make, you know, from a great customer service? And then also what we talked about earlier is, you know, giving back to the community. You know, being recognized for someone that's not just, you know, that we're thinking about all that. Treat our employees well. Treat the community well.
I love that. And what you said earlier too about the example that wasn't a right brand fit of some brand that I'm curious about, but you know, I think it's know who you are and have that federated across the organization. Becky over there is like the best at opportunities will come in and she's like, oh, this isn't a fit. This might be. And that's a gift, right? And if you all know that in your place, you know where you can better fit, and you combine that in a Venn diagram of who your customers are, you're going to succeed. And the thing that I've seen us do our best at is when we then use that and focus our energies together, we make great things happen as a brand. I've seen it, but I've also seen where we take on too many things and do too much and maybe not do it as well. So I think it's that magic of knowing who you are, knowing your consumers, and then like to PJ Fleck this thing, row the boat together.
I can see why you've been there for 20 years. That is really impressive. That's cool. Well
And
done.
I will just, this won't make anybody cry. Hopefully it'll be a laugh, but I won't reveal who the customer was, but the one that we denied, they wanted us, imagine that blanket with the F-bomb written on it, like on a typewriter 2,000 times. And then I put our label on it, and it's going through the mail. We're doing tours, and somebody's walking by a blanket that's got the F-bomb on it, 2,000 times.
And we get crazy requests too.
Yeah,
You'd be surprised.
it's like, it was a big order. We could have made a lot of money, but no,
And
no.
that's part of
Sorry.
it, right? Because then that denigrates
Not who we
you
are. Right. There's a line somewhere.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, that's a great way to conclude. There's a line. No F-bombs, but we've already broken our YouTube channel for that, so it doesn't really matter. You've made it through another wonderful conversation with our two amazing guests. Thank you both for doing this.
Thanks for having.
Thanks for having
Thank you.
us.
Absolutely amazing.
Very honored.
We have two really amazing guests coming up next month. Head of marketing from Winnebago and former head of marketing from Ecolab on the stage. They know each other, good friends. That's going to be cool. I also want to make sure I thank our team over there and broadly speaking, the Capsule team who serves you drinks every time, sets up, except for Michelle. She doesn't do anything. She just comes in. Freeloader. Allison, Kiona, and Rachel Dilly. The Dilly bar, the big Dilly. Dilly went into we had this conversation. This is very funny. She faked that she was her great grandfather invented the Dilly bar to get a free Dilly bar.
Her last
when she
name's
was young.
Dilly. Isn't that the best?
I know. It's a great move. She got one, apparently. Somebody. Anyway, and that also brings up the fact that when you leave, don't you dare leave without looking at the posters and considering buying a poster or cards, and for sure with a Dilly bar. If you leave without a Dilly bar, we got a problem because we don't want to be the biggest firm in the Twin Cities by volume. We don't want all of those Dilly bars, just enough. Thank you, please. Enjoy. Thank you all for being here, and we look forward to seeing you next month.